Hi, Arjen.
Hi, Martin.
How are you?
All good. Thank you very much. Busy, bit too busy, but all good. And
Yeah.
busy is good. So.
Any new projects already?
Oh yes, yeah, that's it. Yeah, four projects at the same time. It's a bit silly at the moment. Of course, we have the live shows coming,
Hmm.
which is September, and there's a lot of preparations for that one. So we're working on that day and night with meetings and stuff like that, and visuals and lights and pyros and lasers and surround sound, and so that's a big job. And then of course, well, Supersonic Revolution is ready, but promotion for that one. And then I'm working on two other projects, which are basically me writing songs for other people and recording them. So yeah, keeping myself busy.
Recording for other people, but they will sing it, or?
They will sing it. I will write it and record it, and I can't mention name now. As always.
Yes.
But
When will those the last two projects, when will they be released, do you think? Is it
well,
within a year?
I think I could be ready with one of them. The other one is in a very early stage, so I don't even know if that's going to be next year. But one of them definitely beginning of next year.
Is it
We
easy? Is it easy to write for others with others in mind, or how do you?
if it's within my taste, it is. First I got to talk to them. What do you want? I want it, and if it's not what I want, I won't do it. I can't. That's why I don't write for movies. If it would be a movie and now you have to, this is happening, and I could not do that. So, but if we determine a certain style and I think it fits the person, then it's a challenge. It has to be a challenge for me. That's why I do the side projects. That's why I do Supersonic Revolution.
What
If
was
I
the challenge for you? What was the challenge for you within this project, Supersonic Revolution?
it's weird. It's musical things. It's, for instance, if you listen to Ayreon or Star One or all my other projects, it has this wall of guitars and it has this wall of sounds and layers and stuff. And this time I wanted it to sound like a live album, like Made in Japan or Live and Dangerous or Strangers in the Night, which means just one guitar. Just one guitar in the middle, and that was the biggest thing for me. I was listening to old Van Halen albums and of course Richard Blackmore and stuff, and there's just one guitar. And nowadays bands don't do that anymore. And so also when the guitar starts playing solo, there will be no rhythm guitar. So you have to fill that up with Hammond, and that's also a thing. I wanted just a Hammond organ, so not all my layers of keyboards and just one singer, which is hard, because the last Star One album had 20 or 30 singers. I don't know, it was silly. So this is just one singer, not too many backing vocals. Basically an album that could be done live, and that was a big challenge because it's easy to impress people with wall of sound. It's much. We were talking just before the interview started about Everly Brothers and Simon and Garfunkel. Wow, that's just two people guitar, and it has to be really good there. You have got to impress people with the songs and with the melodies, and that's pretty hard.
Yeah, you said Van Halen, Richie Blackmore, meaning that they find the song, they find the melody with just one guitar. Is that what you mean?
Well, if you listen to Van Halen, especially the first album, it's if you hear it now, it's weird. It's like, how did they get away with it? There's just one guitar totally in the corner, and then there's drum and bass in the middle. It makes no sense. You get pulled to the left side because that's where the guitar is. But they got away with it, and as a kid, I loved it. And uh, what they do now is they double all the guitars, but it takes away all those little personal things of a guitar player. And the guitar player I have on this album, Timo Somers, which is the son of Jan Somers, whom I played with in Vengeance many, many years ago. He's so incredibly good that I thought it would be a shame to bury him in a wall of sound. You got to hear every scratch he does on the guitar, just to show people how good he is.
Yeah. What was, well, you already mentioned him. Jan Somers, what sort of guitar player was he, and what did he do in Vengeance?
Well, our guitar player quit, the founder guitar player, Oscar, and we had to find a replacement. It was really hard. We had like hundreds. No, that's maybe 20, 30 guitar players coming, and no one, fit the bill. And then this guy came in, and he was one with his guitar. It's like Jimi Hendrix, that's a good comparison. He's one with his, you see it, and it's just, you can't imagine him without a guitar. He'll be naked. And I had the same thing with Jan Somers. It was just so laid back and such a great timing, which is I don't care if someone can play terribly fast or technically perfect. For me, it's timing and sound. I mean, that's why I like David Gilmour. He's not Yngwie Malmsteen, but his timing is great. His sound is great. He plays beautiful melodies, and Jan Somers had this, and Timo, and he probably either taught his son to play like that, or it's in the genes. I don't know, but Timo has the same laid back feel, and he's just an intelligent guitar player. I like that. It's not mindless shredding. It's here and there. It is, because it's cool to impress people suddenly with like, whoa, what did he do there? But it's not just about that.
And Jan passed away a few years ago. Did you stay in contact with Jan, and did you know about Timo, well, during when he grew up and stuff like that?
Yeah, of course I saw him as maybe as a baby, I don't know, but definitely as a tiny little boy walking around there in the house, never thinking that I would look up to him as a guitar player. And basically, when you're young, you fight a lot. There were a lot of fights in Vengeance. And when he left the band, it wasn't good. It was a big fight. Even, it's funny, he got an article in Aardschok magazine, and when I kicked him out of the band, because I was ruthless in those days, I was like, people have to be 100% there or I kick them out. And he had an article in Aardschok, and the headline was, Arjen is sign Hitler. That was the article. And at the time, I wasn't happy. Now I can laugh about it, And when I met him afterwards, we could laugh about it. And I was like, you're young and you're silly. But no, we didn't really keep in touch with the whole Vengeance thing. I really left that behind me.
Was it something that, in hindsight, maybe his article, maybe you can understand where he was coming from?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Totally. Yeah. I was not the bad side of Hitler, I hope, but I was totally a ruler, and a control freak. And basically, maybe that's why I did doing it all alone now, in Ayreon, not annoying other people. And I get it my way because I'm the boss, And in a band, that doesn't work.
That's true. And when did you get to hear Timo as a guitar player? First time that you heard him?
I think when his father died, he also played in Vengeance together with his father. But I didn't really want to look at Vengeance anymore. As I said, I left that in the past. But when his father died, I think the day his father died, he recorded a video of him playing. And man, I was crying like crazy. And Timo was crying while he was playing, but it was so good. It was so good. At that point, I was like, oh my God, And then the first time I worked with him was in the Gentle Storm album. That's the album I did with Anneke van Giersbergen. And he played a solo on that one, which was amazing.
Well, then you said you wanted to have a live feel. You got a request from a German magazine. I think that started it, right?
Yeah. They release rock books, and it's these big books, and they there are reviews of all, like they have a band. let's say Pink Floyd, and they review all the albums in order of good to bad. And for the first two issues, they asked me for a cover of one of these bands, and I had it. But this time I didn't have it. And I said, but it doesn't matter, I'll record one for you. And they said, yeah, but we need it within a week. And I was like, oh my God. So I picked a song, in this case, a ZZ Top song, and I went to WhatsApp and I quickly contacted the first people I could think of. And they were all like, yeah, sure, we'll do it. And yeah, within a week, we'll do it. You got it tomorrow. And that happened, and they sent it to me, and it was all brilliant, and it was all over, and the song was finished, and it was unfinished,
Yeah.
It didn't feel like we have to continue, we have to do more, and everyone was up for it. So first we were like, are we going to do covers? But yeah, no, you'll be a cover band, So then let's try one of our own songs. So then I wrote a song which I thought would fit all the personalities in the band, and that worked perfectly, So then we just went on from there.
What was the song that you wrote? The first song you wrote? You said
it was "Came to Mark, Stayed to Rock," which is a song that it's about a little rocker kid, who refuses to admit that he likes ABBA, but so he went to his show, he came to mock it, like, this is terrible. But then he was there and he was like, oh yeah, ABBA.
Well, just as a little side note, what makes ABBA so good for you?
Well, the songs, of course, the compositions. It's incredible. It's not my music at all, and not even now, and not back then. But I totally appreciate, when we always have like an oldies channel on when we're in the kitchen, and 192 on TV, and it's even ABBA songs comes along, you can bet that you're singing it the rest of the day. You're whistling it.
That's great.
Yeah.
So that was the first song, Came to Mark, Stage to Rock. How did you? Oh, you said we already spoke about Timo. Quickly, the others. Well, Joost, you have worked with him a lot. Why specifically Joost for this project?
Because he's the best Hammond player I know. I mean, I worked with him for 20 years, and not only is he one of my best friends, but he's just so good on the Hammond. And the cool thing is, like, when I met him, he didn't know about a Hammond. I had to play him. This is Keith Emerson, and this is Rick Wakeman, and this is Rick van der Linden. And he was like, oh my God, So his fascination for Hammond came from me, basically, which is kind of cool. And he totally understands it. He understands the power of the Hammond organ.
Meaning, what is the power of a Hammond organ?
Well, you can use it. It has this Leslie going, and sometimes you hear these. I think they're joking about it in Red Dwarf always, that one of the guys has his Hammond best of Hammond songs, and it's terrible. And this Leslie's go, But I think one of the first ones, John Lord of Deep Purple, that he just distorted it. This Leslie speaker. Somehow its distortion makes it huge, almost like a guitar sound, and if you like run over the keys, you get this sound, and you gotta have that feel. If you don't have it, you would never do that. You would maybe go, but Joost gets that. It's like, you get like a roaring of a lion, and he has that power. You got to have that feeling of power, and not everyone has that. And everyone in this band had it, or power. Maybe call it attitude. That's a good word.
Koen Herfst on drums. What did you text him in the first WhatsApp about? Well, the ZZ Top song.
Well, Koen, I needed someone. I was re-recording an old song of a solo album, and I asked Joost, "Do you know someone who can record drums themselves at home?" And he said, "Yeah, Koen, and he's great. He's currently in Vandenberg, and he worked with Armin van Buuren a lot. He does a lot for him." And I contacted him, and I really like the guy, and he's from Den Haag too, and I am too, so that we really clicked together. And he recorded that song, and it was just brilliant. So obviously, because this had to be done in a week, I contacted him because he could like record it in his studio the next day. And he totally understands what I want. He's a very different drummer from Ed Warby, the drummer I usually drum with. I mean, that's a machine, that's a machine, really tight. And Koen is more of a spontaneous drummer, whatever happens, happens. And for me, it was very refreshing to work with him.
Yeah. Jaycee vocals.
Yeah, well, the first time I worked with him was 20 years ago. I think I re-recorded the first Ayreon album acoustically. And there was this song sung by Barry Hay, the original Sail Away to Avalon. And I had him sing it, and it went really well. But he couldn't really show what he could do. So I after that, I didn't work with him for a long time. But then I had to replace Russell Allen for the first Ayreon shows. And Russell Allen is the best singer in the world for me. So that was how we're going to replace him, And I thought of Jaycee, and I was like, oh my God. So he came to the rehearsal, and we were all like, oh my God, he's going to sing Dawn of a Million Souls, which is this huge song, these amazing vocals. And there were like 20, 30 people in the rehearsal room. And he just ripped it, He just stood for the mic, and everyone was hair up and crying and goosebumps. And ever since that, I try to involve him in everything I do.
Yeah, and you said the first song that you wrote was "Came to Mock Stage to Rock."
Yeah.
Well, the album is called "Golden Age of Music." When did you define, let's say, the theme for this album?
I think maybe already from the beginning, because the first song we did was ZZ Top, which is of course a song of the 70s that we did, and this had a bit of a Van Halen. Came to Rock, Stay to Mock had a bit of a Van Halen feel, with the acoustic guitar in the beginning, and I just felt that 70s vibe, and I mean, of course, there's 70s influences in Ayreon, but I never really focused on it. So at that point, I love doing concept albums, and people often say, you're such a genius because you do these huge concept albums. But for me, it's actually easy because I don't have to think about 15 different subjects. I got a concept, and it's much easier for me to write songs that way. So I thought, well, let's focus it on the 70s, and not just music in the 70s, but also stuff that happened that made an influence on me.
Yeah, there was one song, Glamattack, he takes the stage and leaving the 60s behind. It's not sung right after each other, but two lines from that song. Who was that song about?
Actually, it is. It's a play with words, because it is the 16s, not the 60s.
Oh, sorry.
Oh. No one gets that. No one gets that, because the 16s is a sweet song. It's a song of the sweet.
Okay.
It is kind of a play with words, and maybe 1% of the people knows this song and gets it. So,
okay. No, I was thinking you thought about someone who really blew you away when he took the stage back in the early 70s, and then, leaving the 60s behind. But that's
right,
my take on it.
Yeah. Now it was about the band The Sweet, and basically that was the first band I was really crazy about as a 11-year-old kid.
Yeah, and why? What made this band so?
It was outrageous, It was the makeup, and it was the whole look of the band, and it was just more than music. And I've always liked that, I like that in David Bowie. I like that in Alice Cooper. As a kid, I was just impressed by that. I wanted more, I just, there were bands like Bad Company, which I liked, but it was just boring to look at. And I liked the whole glam thing. I loved it.
Yeah, and there's another song, Golden Age of Music. He said, "This is Radio Caroline." I hope that I heard it right. Yeah,
right. Yeah,
yeah. What I think that refers to the 70s too. What is so special for you about Radio Caroline? What is Radio Caroline, and what is so special for you about it?
On normal radio, you didn't hear the rock songs, you didn't hear any of the underground stuff. And if you went to record shops, you could play one album, but there were like 20 or 30 albums I wanted to listen to, but they would kick you out of the shop if you would not buy stuff. So I found these radio stations, and it was Radio Veronica, of course, in Holland. And Radio Caroline, you could get it on the shortwave band. And really, I had this little transistor radio, and I would because I wasn't allowed, to listen to music. I had to when I went to bed, and I just, under the sheets, I was just listening to this, and I had this English voice going, and all these songs weird music that I didn't know. So I loved stuff just because it was weird. Some of the stuff, if I hear it now, I think, oh, why did I like that? Well, probably just because it's weird.
Is there one song? One song you say, well, that's a song that I really liked back then because it was weird. And now when you look back at it, you say, well...
Whoa, that's a hard question. No, I couldn't think of... No, I listened for years and years, so to pick out one song.
Okay.
No, good question, but I would have to think about it.
Well, you say the golden age of music. If you have to summarize, the 70s and the golden age of music, what makes it for you the golden age of music?
Thing is, I totally cannot be objective. So for me, it's the golden age of music. For people who grew up in the 80s, it might be the 80s, but the music you listen to between 10 and 20 is the music that makes your formative years, is the music that makes the most impression on you. And that happened to be, I was born in 1960, so it really happened to be the 70s. And there was so much cool stuff going on. And I think it is already in the 60s, but it was still the childhood of music, and in the 70s it came to fruition, and it was still experimenting, but the results were just amazing. But again, I'm totally subjective there, but nevertheless, I do think the 70s may be the most influential decade there ever was, I think, and nothing is ever going to change that.
You mean being with the development of rock in the 70s, and maybe also with disco coming to age and
punk? Even punk, I loved punk. Really, people think I would hate it as a progger, but I love those waves that totally wash away the thing that came before, And when the Sex Pistols came, I totally loved it, and I was a total punk with safety pin and spiky hair, and going to the Damned concerts and the adverts and the vibrators and whatever. I bought everything punk, and it was just, sometimes it's time to wash away what happened before. The same that happened with grunge, in the 90s, that the whole glam stuff, the whole 80s stuff was just washed away by bands like Nirvana or Alice in Chains, and I love that too. So
yeah, especially personally, I like Alice in Chains a lot.
Totally.
Yeah,
Dirt is the best album ever made in the 90s.
Well, I personally also like the album that they made, the Alice in Chains album with Grind on it, with the three-legged dog on the front.
Oh, yeah.
1995, 96, I think.
Right. Right.
Lane Staley was still, was a bit working. Yeah, he was around. Yeah. But that album that really breathes struggle with life and with drugs.
Totally.
Yeah. Enough of that. The Rise of the Starman. I have one question here. Who is the song about?
Well, a lot of people think it's about Bowie, but it's actually it is about Ziggy Stardust. And Ziggy Stardust was a concept album by David Bowie, but not really. It's like Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band was a concept album, but not really. Maybe one or two songs. Yeah. So there isn't like a clear story in Ziggy Stardust. Someone came to Earth and he had 5 years to let the children boogie. That's basically the outline. So I thought it would be cool to give my impression of what I think Bowie wanted to say with the whole Ziggy Stardust thing.
And what did he want to say, according to you?
It doesn't go very deep. It doesn't go very deep. It's just someone who came to Earth and he had like I explained, he had to save the kids. How I leave it up to the interpretation of people, but
what is this is then Bowie. Are there other songs that you say, well, this is something, for example, Golden Boy, is it something that the inspiration came from, actually albums or songs or people from the 70s?
Totally. Golden Boy is about my favorite director of all time, Steven Spielberg. I loved all his stuff, especially in the 70s. I already liked Jewel, which was his first movie with Dennis Weaver with a big truck. He was chased by a big truck and that was it, such a simple thing, but he was the master of suspense after Hitchcock. And of course Jaws, his first big hit, and I saw it again, just a year ago, and it was just as good. It really stood the test of time, and that's not many movies stand the test of time. And I loved everything he did back then, and I loved everything he's done ever since. So, and he was one of the youngest directors to have that level of success, hence the title Golden Boy.
Yeah. Odyssey. What inspired that song?
Of course, you had. It's about the Apollo 13. Stuff. So, and the starship was called the Odyssey. So that's where the title comes from. And basically what I'm saying in that song is, of course, you had the moon landing, Armstrong, and everyone knows about that, and everyone's glued to the television. But by the time Apollo 13 came, no one was interested anymore. And they went to the moon, and, they had all these news flashes, and they didn't even put it on the television. No one was interested until things started going wrong. They couldn't land on the moon, and they couldn't even get back to Earth anymore. And an oxygen tank blew up, and it was all very, very scary. And suddenly the press was all over it, and everyone knew about it. Kind of like sensationalism, So a lot of things you see happening now on the internet. So that's basically what the song is about.
Yeah. You wrote this whole album. Are there, did you learn something about the 70s while doing this album, while recording the album?
No, I knew. I wrote about what I knew. Yeah. I wrote about what made an impression on me as a kid. So, no, I didn't have to do any research, which was very cool for me, because usually if I do stuff about black holes and white holes and quasars, I have to do a lot of research. And now, of course, there's Google. In those days, I had to go to the library and learn what is a black. I didn't want to mess it up, and I actually get a lot of mails from people who became a scientist because of my stuff,
Yeah.
And that's so cool. So you don't want to mess it up, and write wrong things. So, but for this, I didn't have to do any research.
What song or what album made the most impression regarding to people actually becoming interested in science and stuff? Is there?
It was Universal Migrator. It's the The first album, it was 2 albums. The first album was all set on Earth, history of Earth. But I wanted to go back in time, all the way back to the chaos, to the Big Bang, and what happened, after the Big Bang. So there's a lot of cosmological, is that a word?
Well, now it is.
Now it is. Stuff in there, and a lot of scientific stuff in there. So that must have been the one that did the trick.
Well, you said you wrote about everything that you knew. Well, we discussed Odyssey, meaning Apollo 13. We discussed the Golden Boy Spielberg. We discussed Sweet. We discussed Bowie. Is the one thing that that we didn't discuss, you say, that I have to mention, that is something that really inspired me from the 70s?
Definitely. And it's my favorite, maybe my favorite lyric I ever wrote. And it's the song called Burn It Down. Okay. Thing is, every time I go to bed, I watch YouTube for an hour. And being an old man by now, I always fall asleep. And I did that night. And I woke up and Smoke on the Water was playing, not a song I would listen to because, you're sick and tired of it. But Smoke on the Water came on, and I was like, oh my God, why is this so good? I mean, and then the bass, doom, 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 doom. That's it. What makes it so good? Can I do that? So I went up, got my guitar, and got a riff that was very close to Smoke on the Water. And I was like, I can't get away with this. This is too derivative. But I thought, what if I make a lyric that's about Smoke on the Water? And the original lyric is about Deep Purple, who were in a hotel, and they saw through the window, they saw smoke on the water, which was some stupid with a flare gun set a place where Frank Zappa was playing, the casino, on fire. So that's what the lyric is about. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool to explain to who did it and why he did it and what happened to him. So that whole song is about the stupid with the flare gun and why did he do it and what happened to him, and it's all explained in that lyric. So if people tell me like, hey, that's very much like Smoke Water, I just say yeah.
Well, what did happen to him? Who is he and what did happen to him?
It's a story that Lake Geneva, of course, that's where the smoke was. This guy, he saw like this beautiful girl and he wanted to go out with her, but she treated him like shit, and she was going to this Frank Zappa concert that night. And he thought, I'm gonna ruin that concert for her, so he bought a flare gun. He went to the concert, set the place on fire, and basically that's my interpretation of the story.
Well, you called it Supersonic Revolution. What made, you had the golden age of music, of course, that was the theme. Was already the band name, was it already picked before you came up with golden age of music?
Actually, the band name was Arjen Lucassen Federation, because I thought I had to come up with a name really fast. Because it had to be done within a week. So that's all I could come up with. It had a bit of a Star Trek feel because of the Federation. But of course, the abbreviation of that is ALF. And if you see it as an alien life form, that's cool. But people see it as the fuzzy little monster, the little hand puppet. So first time it was going on the socials that I released a song under the name ALF. It was the 1st of April. So people were like, oh, that's a really bad April Fool's Day joke, Yeah. So I thought, no, I can't do that. It's too silly. And then, it's always so hard to come up with a title. And then I just picked the title. It's in the song Golden Age of Music, which is about the 70s. And I see the 70s as a supersonic revolution. So it's a line from the lyric.
Yeah. What are your plans now with this? What are you going to do with Supersonic Revolution?
No plans at the moment. Of course, we have the shows in September, the Ayreon shows, and it's a lot of work, and we're totally working on that day and night with meetings and stuff like that. So there's no way we can do any live stuff. But basically, yeah, like I said, it's set up to be played live, and it's definitely an option. We're all from Holland, which makes it a lot easier. So we'll see next year what happens. We'll also see how this album is received, if the fans like it, and if there's interest, it's definitely an option to do something live.
Yeah, I think, well, like you were saying, being a live concept, well, you have to do it, of course. It would be a bit strange if you're not playing it live, right?
Well, if no one cares, if no one is interested, then
people will care.
I don't know. I'm always insecure, and I'm just hoping that I didn't limit my chances to sell this by doing it about the 70s, because it will only sell to 60 plus people, and I don't know. We'll see what happens. I know it's a good. I'm proud of it, but.
Well, but the thing is, you recorded the album with people who are much younger.
That's true.
So.
That's true, and that was
might be sorry, what? What's that?
Well, it was very important for me that it didn't sound like the 70s. That's a problem when I play younger people, Stargazer by Rainbow or Kashmir by Led Zeppelin. They understand that I like it, but it sounds like crap. It really doesn't sound good if you listen to it now, being used to productions these days. So it doesn't sound good. So I definitely didn't want it to sound like the 70s. I wanted to sound like now, which is good if you work with young people. Like Timo's half my age, and he probably doesn't even know the difference between 70s or 80s. He probably it wasn't Europe 70s. So that's good that he brings his modern style into it.
Yeah, but it could be that working with those people that might attract younger people to this music too.
Yeah. I mean, have you seen Timo's abs? He's like,
I know.
He's like huge. That's. I hope that will attract some fans.
I think it will. Arjen, looking forward to hopefully the live shows next year. Thank you for the interview.
Cool, man. Always fun.
Yes.